There's a reason why some men walk into a woman's life and leave an imprint that never fades while others vanish like a passing breeze. It's not looks, it's not charm, it's not the money in their pocket or the words they say. It's presence, it's power, it's poise. You've been told to be a nice guy, to express more, to give more, to open up. But no one told you that too much availability drowns attraction. No one told you that silence, when rooted in strength, is more seductive than compliments. That restraint builds tension, that mystery breeds obsession. This isn't a game. This is deeper. It's about returning to your core, where the noise stops and your essence speaks, where you don't chase, you draw in, where you don't explain, you radiate, where you don't beg to be kept, because you already know you're the prize. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about peeling back the performance and becoming the man women feel but can't quite touch. A man whose calm presence whispers louder than desperation ever could. So if you're ready to stop chasing approval and start embodying quiet power, this journey is yours now. Number 1. The silent power that makes women respect you. There's a kind of silence that echoes louder than words, a stillness that doesn't ask for attention, but naturally commands it. Imagine standing at the edge of a storm. The sky rages, thunder shatters the air, and yet, in the center of it all, there's a place untouched by chaos, the eye, calm, unmoving, and it is in that calm that true power resides. This is what emotional control looks like in a man. It's not the absence of feeling, but the ability to hold one's center while everything else trembles. Women may not always articulate it, but this quality draws them in like gravity. The world teaches men to open up emotionally, to be vulnerable, to share everything, but Stoicism and ancient masculine wisdom offers a different path. To feel deeply, but respond with poise, to lead, not react. Why is this so powerful? Because in a world drowning in overreactions, emotional chaos, and insecure men who panic at every unread message, the man who doesn't flinch becomes unforgettable. Many men fall into the trap of thinking that expressing every emotion they feel makes them appear honest, loyal, and genuine. But from the eyes of a woman, too much expression without control looks like weakness. It becomes a performance, a grasp for approval, a loss of center. Now imagine two men, both receive a vague, distant message from a woman. I don't know how I feel right now. The first man, reacting from fear, types out a long message. Did I do something wrong? I care about you. Please talk to me. Let's fix this. He thinks he's being emotionally available, but he's actually handing his emotional stability to her on a silver platter. She now holds the strings. The second man reads the message, feels the sting, but doesn't respond right away. He takes a breath, reflects, and decides. This is her space. My path continues. He goes to the gym, spends the evening with his thoughts or work. He might respond the next day briefly, with clarity and warmth, but without losing himself in her emotional whirlwind. Guess which one she obsesses over? Women don't fall for emotional overexposure. They fall for stability, and not just external stability, money, appearance, status, but internal stability. The kind you can't fake, the kind that shows up when she tries to shake you and finds that you remain steady. This is what Niccolo Machiavelli hinted at when he said, "The wise man does immediately what the fool does finally. The fool reacts first, then regrets. The wise man pauses, reflects, and then acts or not at all." Emotional control doesn't mean apathy, it means mastery. A Stoic man is not a robot. He feels every emotion but doesn't let them define his actions. He knows that storms pass and that reacting impulsively usually means giving up power. This is especially true in relationships, where women often, without realizing it, test men to see if they can stand strong in the face of unpredictability. She takes longer to respond. She questions your tone. She brings up an issue seemingly out of nowhere. And in these moments, the average man becomes defensive. He writes novels explaining himself. He apologizes excessively. He overpromises and underleads. But the high-value man, the one grounded in Stoicism, doesn't need to explain his every move. His silence is not passive, it's powerful. Let's return to a simple example. A woman sends a short, cold reply. Okay? The average man panics. Did I say something wrong? Are you mad? What's going on? The Stoic man reads it, smiles slightly, and sets his phone down. He has a life to live. He'll return to the conversation when there's clarity, or maybe not at all. This triggers something deep inside her, because women aren't used to this level of detachment, not the cold kind, but the strong, masculine kind that says, I care about you, but I won't chase you. I won't shrink for you. This doesn't just build attraction, it builds respect. In moments of tension, when she cries or lashes out or blames you unfairly, the average man scrambles to fix her mood. He loses his frame. He apologizes, even when he knows he didn't do anything wrong, just to avoid discomfort. But the grounded man listens, breathes, responds, if necessary, but never reacts out of fear. And because of that, he becomes her anchor. Why does this matter? Because women are deeply emotional creatures, but they crave emotional polarity. They want to feel deeply, and they want a man who can contain those emotions, not mirror them. If you fall into her emotional storm, she feels alone. But if you remain calm, she feels seen and held. You don't become magnetic by oversharing. You become magnetic by mastering your internal world. When she sees that you are unshaken, not because you don't feel, but because you choose strength over panic, she starts to lean in. She starts to follow. You become a refuge. This is the heart of emotional leadership, not commanding her with words, but guiding her with presence. And here's the twist. When you stop reacting, when you stop needing her validation or chasing her affection, she becomes the one chasing. Because now, she senses you live from a different center. You don't orbit around her mood, you orbit around your mission. This is not manipulation, it's self-respect. You want her, but you don't need her. You invite her, but you never beg her. You feel her, but you never drown in her. In your calm, she finds chaos undone. In your stillness, she feels safe. So the next time she pulls away, acts cold, or throws emotional fire in your direction, don't run toward it. Don't put your hand into the flame. Watch, breathe, hold your center. Let her emotions come and go like tides. You be the unmoving shore. Because a man who leads himself is the only man truly capable of leading others. Now, speak out and comment below. I control my emotions. They don't control me. Number 2, the magnetic power of mystery. There's something deeply unsettling in the most beautiful way about a man you can't fully understand. A man who sits across from you, calm and composed, offering just enough to spark your curiosity, but never quite enough to satisfy it. His silence is not awkward, it's intentional. His presence doesn't scream. It hums quietly like a forgotten melody you keep trying to remember. And as you leave the room, his energy doesn't fade, it lingers. Because mystery, when rooted in purpose, becomes obsession. In a world where most people are desperate to be seen, constantly broadcasting every opinion, every meal, every fleeting thought, there is something profoundly attractive about a man who holds something back. Not out of fear or deceit, but out of strength. Because what is hidden is protected, and what is protected has value. Mystery is not about games. It is about gravity. It is the result of a life lived inwardly where your soul isn't constantly seeking an audience, but rather refining itself in solitude. When a man speaks with restraint, listens with intensity, and lives without the need for constant validation, he creates space. And space is what allows the feminine imagination to breathe, to wonder, to spiral into fascination. Most men ruin this natural polarity by over-explaining. They meet a woman and immediately unload their history, their future plans, their traumas, their intentions. They believe transparency builds trust. But what they don't realize is that full exposure erases the thrill of discovery. A woman doesn't fall in love with a spreadsheet. She falls in love with a mystery, with the echo in the hallway. with the man who answers her question with a thoughtful pause instead of a practiced monologue. The moment you become predictable, her attention drifts, but when you say less, when your actions hint at complexity she cannot name, her subconscious begins to work overtime. She plays your words back in her mind. She questions your silences. She starts filling in the blanks. And the more she imagines, the more she invests. And the more she invests, the more she desires. You don't have to lie to be mysterious. You just have to resist the urge to explain everything. When she asks what you're doing tonight, don't list your whole itinerary. Say, handling a few things. Let her wonder. Let her mind dance in the spaces you've left undefined. Let your life be something she experiences in chapters, not spoilers. The man who masters mystery isn't aloof. He is simply intentional. Every word carries weight. Every pause is purposeful. He doesn't rush to entertain, or to comfort, or to impress. He knows that the feminine doesn't crave constant access. It craves emotional tension. It wants to lean in, not be handed everything up front. This is why you must guard your time, your thoughts, your presence, not to create artificial scarcity, but to protect your essence. When a woman senses that she is not entitled to your full world, that she must earn each layer, she respects you more. And when respect enters the room, desire is never far behind. Live richly. Cultivate a life so full that you don't need to speak of it constantly. When your purpose fills your calendar, you become less available, and in that absence, your presence becomes more valuable. When you walk into a room and don't need to explain who you are, your aura does the speaking for you. Remember, obsession is born from distance. Not physical distance, but psychological distance. Let her feel like she knows you, but not all of you. Let her feel welcomed, but not entitled. Let her feel seen, but still searching. When she realizes that your silence is not emptiness, but depth, that your brevity is not disinterest, but focus, she'll come back. Again and again. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're hard to forget. Now, speak out and comment below. I don't explain myself, I let her wonder. Number 3. The power of an unshakable emotional frame. Some men walk into a room and try to claim attention with volume, with movement, with bravado. But then, there's the other kind. The man who doesn't compete, doesn't announce his presence. He simply exists in that space as if it belongs to him. And somehow, all eyes turn. Not because he's trying to be seen, but because he can't be ignored. That is the power of an unshakable emotional frame. We've all seen this happen, maybe at a gathering, where voices overlap and tensions rise, where egos jostle for space. Someone makes a passive-aggressive comment, hoping to provoke a reaction. Most men would respond defensively, laugh nervously, or throw back their own jab. But the grounded man simply listens, unbothered. He sips his drink, holds his posture, maybe offers a single word or a glance, but no panic, no need to prove. And just like that, the entire energy of the room adjusts around him because he didn't flinch. Women feel this. They are exquisitely attuned to subtle shifts in energy. When a man can hold his frame in the face of challenge, conflict, or chaos, he radiates something deeper than charisma. He radiates security, and security is one of the most potent aphrodisiacs. There's a dangerous myth among modern men that, to be respected, they must dominate, they must out-argue, outflex, outwit, but this is noise. True authority is quiet. It is still. It doesn't react, it responds. And often, it doesn't even need to respond, because silence, when grounded, speaks louder than defense. Stoic philosophy understood this long before psychology gave it a name. To control the external is foolish, but to master the internal, that is wisdom. And in social situations, your internal state is either your fortress or your prison. If a woman watches you crumble under pressure, if your mood is hijacked by someone else's opinion, she loses something intangible. Maybe she can't explain it, but it feels like a thread just snapped. You're no longer the mountain, you're the leaf in the wind. But when you are unmoved, when your energy is self-contained, when your mood is not subject to the room but instead anchors it, she leans in. Not because she understands what's happening, but because her instincts tell her, this man is different. Imagine you're at a dinner. Someone mocks your success or throws a sarcastic comment your way. The average man takes the bait. He smirks, counters, maybe throws a shot back, hoping for approval. But the grounded man, he doesn't need to engage. He doesn't laugh for permission. He lets the silence fall. He lets the moment breathe. And when he finally speaks, if at all, it's brief, measured, clean, and that restraint, it shakes the room more than any outburst ever could. This kind of energy doesn't just make a woman attracted to you. It makes her feel safe near you, because if you don't need to defend your identity in public, she knows you won't collapse in private. You become her constant, her anchor, her calm in the storm. But here's the irony. This level of emotional control doesn't come from trying to be cool. It comes from alignment. When you are centered in your purpose, you stop needing validation. You stop seeking comfort in reaction. You realize that real power isn't shown in dominance, it's felt in presence. You begin to master the art of pause, the art of stillness. You learn that you don't have to meet fire with fire. Sometimes, fire dies when it finds nothing to burn. And in that moment, you become untouchable, not because you're unfeeling, but because you are unshakable. This frame isn't built overnight. It's forged in discipline, in choosing your response when provoked, in breathing when your ego wants to speak, in walking away when staying would only feed your need to be right. The man who needs to win every argument, who reacts to every jab, who insists on being understood, he's not in control. He's in fear, and fear is never attractive. The more you master your frame, the more influence you gain, not just over how others see you, but how they feel in your presence. You'll notice that women start to treat you differently. They speak softer. They choose their words more carefully, not out of fear, but out of deep respect. Because when a man doesn't flinch, doesn't chase approval, doesn't waver, he becomes rare. And what is rare becomes sacred. So the next time you're in a social space and someone challenges you, don't reach for a reaction. Let the moment hang. Let your silence do the talking. Let your energy say, I don't owe you a response. Because the man who controls the tempo controls the room. Now, speak out and comment below. I am the calm. I never chase approval. Number 4. The hidden power of controlled polarity. There's a moment, a very specific, raw moment when a woman is expressing intense emotion. Her voice rises, her body language is erratic, her words spill out in waves of frustration or passion. And across from her sits a man, not absent, not cold, but absolutely calm. He doesn't interrupt, doesn't try to fix her, doesn't mirror her chaos. He simply remains, breathing, present, solid, and in that instant, something unexpected happens. She softens, not because he said the perfect words, but because she felt something she rarely experiences: grounded masculine polarity. Most men think women want harmony at all times, that the path to her heart is paved with comfort, validation, and agreement. So they apologize too quickly, they explain too much, they absorb her storm as if their role is to be her emotional sponge. But that's not what she wants. What she truly desires, though she might never say it, is for you to remain firm while she dances through her storm. She wants to crash against something unbreakable. This is the essence of controlled polarity. The tension between masculine stillness and feminine expression, between your clarity and her chaos, between your silence and her noise. It's in this contrast that attraction burns brightest, because when you remain centered in the face of her emotional tidal waves, she senses something rare: safety, not the safety of agreement, but the safety of structure. A woman does not test a man because she's cruel. She tests him because she's searching for truth. She wants to know, can you hold me when I fall apart? Can you still see me when I am unlovable? Will your presence dissolve my panic, or will it dissolve with me? When you lose your frame during these moments, when you raise your voice to match hers, when you defend yourself out of fear, When you try to make her feel better just to escape discomfort, you failed the test. Because now, she has to become the container. She has to regulate the energy. She has to lead. And nothing kills attraction faster than that. But when you remain calm, not withdrawn, but available when your tone stays low, your words few, your eyes present, you give her something she didn't know she needed, permission to let go, because your calm tells her, this storm won't drown me, I've weathered worse. Keep going, I'm still here. And in that exchange, a primal shift occurs. She feels safe to be vulnerable, not just because you're not reacting, but because your non-reaction is laced with power. This is not easy. Your ego will scream to defend itself. Your nervous system will beg for resolution, but your restraint is the proof of your depth. When she says, "Why are you so calm? Don't you care?" Your stillness is not a sign of indifference, but mastery, and eventually, she will come to trust that calm more than any temporary comfort. This polarity is not a game, it's a spiritual posture. It says, I am not here to manage your emotions. I am here to witness them, hold them, and not become them. That is love without codependency. That is intimacy without fusion. That is leadership without control. Real masculinity is not loud. It doesn't yell, explain, or prove. It leads in silence. It listens without absorbing. It stands still when everything else moves. And when she sees that you can remain unshaken, not out of stubbornness, but out of sovereignty, she will feel something she can't name but can't stop wanting. You don't need to be her therapist. You don't need to be her echo chamber. You need to be her mirror, the one that doesn't distort under pressure, because the feminine doesn't fall in love with words. She falls in love with energy, and the energy that says, I'm not going anywhere, even when you break, is the one she'll never forget. So the next time she cries, yells, accuses, or withdraws, pause. Let her feel her feelings. Don't rush to fix. Don't beg to be understood. Say less, breathe more, be still. Because stillness is not inaction. It is dominance over reaction. It is how you prove not to her, but to yourself that your peace cannot be taken. And that is how she learns to trust you. Now, speak out and comment below. I stay grounded, no matter the storm. Number 5. The freedom of non-attachment to outcome. There is a kind of freedom that most men will never taste. It doesn't come from money, power, or even success with women. It comes from letting go of one thing, the need for a specific result. And when a man truly detaches from outcome, not in apathy but in sovereignty, something strange and beautiful happens. Women begin to chase him. The world has trained men to obsess over reactions, over text replies, over signals, smiles, and likes. So they calculate their every move. They write and rewrite messages, interpret silences, search for signs that they're winning or losing. But what they're really doing is enslaving themselves to the feminine, not because women are controlling them, but because their desire for control over outcome is controlling them. But the Stoic man knows better. He desires, but he is not owned by desire. He acts, but does not cling to the fruit of action. He loves, but does not beg, and in this rare posture, he becomes magnetic because his value does not depend on her response. His value is rooted in his mission, in his code, in his self-respect. A woman feels this instantly. She knows when a man is saying all the right things because he wants something. She can feel when his confidence is just performance, something that dissolves the moment she pulls away. But when she meets a man who is unaffected by her tests, who does not push when she pulls back, who can smile and walk away instead of spiral into self-doubt, that man becomes unforgettable. Because what scares the feminine more than rejection is encountering a man who doesn't fear it. When she says, I don't know what I want, the average man tries to convince her. He sends essays. He reminds her how great they were together. He asks, what did I do wrong? But the sovereign man hears the same words and simply replies, take your time, I know what I want. Then he moves on, not to punish, not to manipulate, but because his path doesn't stop for indecision. And that stillness, that confidence, that non-resistance, it begins to unravel her. She begins to think about you when you're not around. She wonders why you're not chasing. She compares you to every man who did. And the contrast exposes a truth. You were never trying to win her. You were already winning at life. She just had the chance to walk alongside you. Non-attachment is not the absence of care. It's the presence of purpose. When you know your worth so deeply that her reaction can't shake it when you want her, but never need her, you become the rarest kind of man, the one who is free. And women cannot resist freedom, because freedom is the one thing most people are too afraid to claim. Most men are emotionally enslaved by outcomes, so when a woman meets one who isn't, it shocks her. It forces her to step into her own power or chase yours. This doesn't mean you don't pursue. It means your pursuit is clean. You say what you want. You make your intention known. But then you step back and observe, not with anxiety, but with peace. If she leans in, beautiful. If she leans away, beautiful, because her movement does not move you. And in that space, she begins to feel drawn, not to your affection, but to your essence. So practice this. When she is slow to reply, do not reach. When she pulls away emotionally, do not explain yourself. When things don't go the way you hoped, do not panic. Return to your focus. Return to your breath. Return to your purpose. And when you find yourself clinging, ask, what am I really afraid of losing? If the answer is your sense of self, then you've already lost. But if your identity remains intact no matter who stays or leaves, then you are living in a kind of masculine truth that few ever reach. She may not understand this kind of energy at first. It may confuse her. It may challenge her. But deep down, it will feel like a relief, because no woman truly wants to carry the emotional weight of a man. She wants to surrender to a man whose peace cannot be bought, broken, or borrowed. In this way, detachment becomes the highest form of desire. It says, I see you, I want you, but if you leave, I remain whole. That wholeness, that freedom, that deep inner unshakable belief that nothing and no one defines you but yourself, that is what keeps her thinking about you long after you're gone. Now, comment below, I want her, but I never need her. Number 6, the power of indifference. How not caring wins her obsession. There's a moment, a quiet, unnerving moment when she realizes she doesn't affect you the way she thought she would. Maybe it's the way your eyes don't linger. Maybe it's the way you don't rush to reply. Or maybe it's just how you keep moving forward, unbothered, when she tries to pull away. And in that silence, she begins to feel something she can't quite explain. Not rejection, but obsession. Indifference, when it's real, is power, not the cold, bitter kind that comes from pain or disappointment, but the calm, sovereign kind that comes from knowing who you are and where you're going and not needing her to approve of either. This is not cruelty, this is clarity. And in the realm of masculine attraction, clarity is king. Most men don't understand this. They chase, they overthink. They bend their identity just to keep her interested. They mistake emotional investment for love, not realizing that what they're offering is not affection, but submission. And the more they invest without being invited, the more she retreats, not because she wants to punish them, but because they've given her everything without requiring anything in return. But when you stop reacting, when you stop reaching, when you stop letting her behavior dictate your direction, something primal shifts. You become the one thing most women rarely encounter, a man who is unaffected by her power. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means your care is rooted in choice, not dependency. You're not moved by her dress, her drama, or even her distance, because your world doesn't orbit her moods, it orbits your mission. And the irony, that very indifference is what pulls her in. A woman is used to being the sun. Everything turns when she shifts. But when she meets a man who doesn't turn, who stays focused, whose silence doesn't collapse under pressure, she begins to feel a kind of disorientation. She wonders, why isn't he reacting? Why doesn't he chase me like the others? And that wonder turns into intrigue. That intrigue turns into curiosity. And curiosity, unchecked, becomes obsession. You become the only one who didn't fall for the bait, the only one who didn't validate her control. And now, she finds herself thinking about you at night, scrolling through old messages, analyzing what you meant when you didn't say anything at all. Indifference is misunderstood. It's often labeled as apathy, but in its highest form, it's discipline. The discipline to remain rooted in your value even when you want to reach out. The discipline to not respond to every emotional tug. The discipline to choose your peace over her attention. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Women are part of those outside events, their attention, their affection, their withdrawal. They are not within your control. What is within your control is how much you let any of it shape your emotional world. She sends a dry message, you keep your rhythm. She posts a seductive story meant to provoke you. You don't take the bait. She disappears for 3 days and suddenly returns with a sweet text. You smile, but your heartbeat doesn't change. You've outgrown emotional gambling, because what's more attractive than a man who can't be manipulated? You don't need to punish her. You don't need to teach her a lesson. You simply live. And when she sees that her attempts to control the narrative no longer work, she stops trying to control you and starts trying to understand you, because now you're unpredictable. You're a puzzle. You're a force. Most men exhaust themselves trying to be good enough. They want to be chosen. But the man who lives with indifference to being chosen becomes the one every woman wants to choose. Because he is no longer seeking approval, he is radiating purpose. And purpose is what ignites polarity. It's in the man who would rather miss her than betray himself. It's in the man who can sit in silence after rejection and not spiral. It's in the man who doesn't chase closure, because he knows he never needed it to begin with. You want her, but you'll never beg. You desire her, but you'll never need. You show up fully, but when she leaves, you don't collapse. You evolve. There's a quiet fire in that posture, and she can feel it. So let her wonder. Let her reach. Let her feel the space you once filled with effort, now filled with presence. Because that space is where she will begin to chase. Not because you ignored her, but because you refused to abandon yourself to hold her. Now, speak out and comment below. I never chase what's already mine inside. If you truly grasp what you've just heard, then you already feel the shift inside you. The man who needed her approval is fading. The man who over-explained, who reacted, who lived for the outcome, that version is being replaced by something rare, something immovable. Now you understand. Your silence is power. Your distance is strategy. Your stillness is what draws her in again and again. Because when a man leads with calm, he becomes the storm she can't outrun. When he lets go of the outcome, he becomes the future she imagines. When he stops performing and just is, he becomes the memory that lingers. This is not the end. This is the beginning of a life where women no longer define your value, where attraction flows to you not because you ask, but because you are. So walk in silence, move with purpose, speak only when your words are heavier than your presence, and let the world, especially her, adjust to your gravity.